Hello, welcome to another episode of What the F. Now, I've often referred to the subject I'm going to talk about in past videos because it's something that pops up a lot, even in my kind of everyday conversation, regardless of kind of what it's about, because it's a very prevalent topic in everyone's life, in fact, in the world over, to be honest with you, and the subject is religion. Now, if you've watched the videos up to this point, you will have surmised by now that I'm an atheist. Now, I wasn't always an atheist. Again, like many people, I believed in God for a long time, and didn't necessarily believe in religion in general. I've always kind of regarded the two things, God and religion, as different, and I'll explain why. I mean, like many of you out there, if you're watching this video, I mean, you learn about religion primarily at home. But that's not how it was for me. For me, my mum and dad were religious, but not religious to the point where they would kind of use religion as a threat. Like, sometimes you hear the old tales of, like, better eat your dinner, or if I can eat it all, or if I can, Jesus watching, you'll be disappointed. Nothing like that. My mum and dad, as I already said, were, I think, religious, but they kept it to themselves, not out of some sense of shame, oh, I can't tell anybody. It's more like, they believed what they believed. It was personal to them. And when it came to us, their children, like, I have a brother and two sisters, when it came to religion for us, at least this is my point of view, it wasn't really spoken about. And again, it wasn't through any kind of ignorance or neglect. It was just through the fact of, look, essentially their attitude was make up your own mind. Which, in my opinion, is the best way to go about it, because there are too many instances where if you force religion on someone, the older they get, the more that they're resentful of it, because they don't feel they had a choice, and that's one thing I emphasize in religion in my family is choice. We weren't told to not be religious. We were told, not in verbal terms, but essentially the attitude was, there's religion out there, believe what you want to believe, doesn't matter to us. And which was good, because I mean, I would imagine now, I think my brother and my sister, they believe in God, and I think, as far as I know, I'm the only one. My mother passed 2 years ago now. She was religious. She's taught me things. I won't speak of them here, but she's taught me things that clearly she did believe in the afterlife and God and all that. My dad, I think, does. Again, he doesn't talk about it, because again, they had the attitude of, look, let them make up their own minds, which was good. And I did make up my mind for the longest time. I did believe in God. I didn't necessarily go to church, but my view of religion was always God is, if God existed, then God is this omnipresent, huge intelligence. If you believe the rhetoric of the Bible, God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he took the day off. Which is fair enough. I mean, Christ, you create the world, you're fucking knackered. You deserve a day off. And, well, it's just everyone believes this. And if this is true, again, I don't believe it is, but let's play devil's advocate here for a moment. If this is true and God exists, then again, he's a vast intelligence. If he's everywhere at once and he can hear us all, I mean, that's a hell of a claim to make. But at the same time, it never rang true to me, because you have priests and preachers and holy people in general always preaching on about God and about what God wants, about what God likes and what God expects of us. Now again, never rang true, because if God created all this, the vastness of the universe, every human being on earth, all the animals, everything, he made it all, then that would involve an intelligence so vast, so fucking above and beyond us, that the very notion that we can say what God does and does not like, is a ludicrous claim. Because it would be like, there's a great quote from the classic sci-fi movie Planet of the Apes, where the astronauts there are kind of bickering a little amongst themselves, and one of them's talking like, wants to, oh, I want to know where I am. I want to go back. And by this time in the movie, they know they've been gone from Earth for over 2,000 years. And Charlton Heston, as Taylor, says a brilliant quote, and he says, even if you could get back, they'd think you were something that fell out of a tree. Now, what essentially that means is that an intelligence as vast as God is supposed to be is so above and beyond us that we're minor in comparison. Our thinking, we can't conceive of the kind of intelligence that's required to create the universe and everything in it in 6 days. That would require a level of understanding and intelligence that we just don't have. So the very notion that we can relate to such an intelligence on a human level, that we can say, I understand that intelligence, I know what that intelligence wants. It's, again, I said, ludicrous, because we can't think like them. It would be like bringing a mobile phone back to the caveman era and trying to explain to a caveman how it works. They're not going to understand. It's a level of knowledge and a level of intelligence that is beyond them. So that's the way I think of it. It might seem like a kind of a cruel comparison, but we're the cavemen, and God is allegedly the vast intelligence. So if God is up there, there's no way we can possibly in a million years understand his motivation, his or her motivations, at all. Now, everyone has the point in their life, right, where they're religious and they think about religion. And there's a point in your life where you think, right, I either accept this or I get out of it. And some people can pinpoint an exact moment where they thought, well, that's it. They make the decision to be religious or to go the way of atheist, or they pick another faith. I can't really remember. I don't think I can pin down a specific moment for me. For me, it was more an accumulation. I have, as many people do have, an inquisitive mind. I like to know things. I like to ask questions. I like to try and understand what makes things the way they are and how they work. So the older I got, when I was younger, there was no question in my mind about God. But the older I got, the smarter you get, the more knowledge you can accumulate, the more you start thinking. And it just doesn't make sense. It just starts to, at least to me, not make sense. I mean, I can't understand blind faith. I mean, the sad thing about religion is that there is no room whatsoever in religion for independent thought. You can't ask questions in religion. You're in religion, Catholicism, all of them, Islam, all the religions, you're told, this is the belief, accept it, or get out of it. There's no room for questions. You're not allowed to say, you're not allowed to ask, yeah, but what about this? And they'll just say some things like, oh, God works in mysterious ways. Like, that's a fucking answer. But for me, it was, again, I needed to know more. I was like, well, what about this? What about this? Because the Bible is a book that is chock-block full of, sorry to the religious who might see this, crap. Because when you look at it, it makes no sense to what we know to be true. I mean, and for me, the questions just kept on stacking, and I couldn't get it anymore. Like, I keep talking about quotes from films, like director and writer Kevin Smith, for instance, said in a movie he made, Dogma, he made this brilliant comparison in religion. He goes, faith is like a glass of water. When you're young, glass is small, it's easier to fill. The older you get, the bigger the glass gets, same amount of liquid don't do the job. And that's, I mean, periodically you have to kind of top up your faith. You have to read the scriptures and maybe find new meaning, and then that renews your faith and your belief. But if you're like me, the glass kept getting bigger, and the same amount of liquid I couldn't top up because I tried to justify it. Like a classic example would be, you're told in the Bible that God created the earth in 6 days. Now we know scientifically that's not true. We know that there was a Big Bang billions of years ago, and it all evolved, it all changed. It was all random. There was no grand design behind it. That's what happened. Now, I don't know exactly when I learned about the Big Bang Theory, but I do remember trying to justify my belief in God by stating, well, maybe God caused the Big Bang Theory. And that was sort of the beginning, I think, that could probably be seen as the beginning of my second progression to becoming an atheist. Because of situations like that, questions would arise, and I would kind of fit it in and justify it, as a lot of people do. Because again, the older you get, the more common sense and more knowledge you have, you start to question things. And then for some people, their belief in God is still important to them, so they try and fit their belief in God into the burgeoning knowledge that they're having, like I did there with the Big Bang. And it kept going like that. I would think about things, and my basic belief my basic belief in God became God kick-started creation with the Big Bang, and then just sat back and said, "Right, lads, it's up to you now. I'll be watching." That was it, sort of like, some bizarre version of Big Brother with God as the only viewer. We're all the contestants. But then, you look at all the other religious faiths and all the stuff that's done in their name. I mean, you have the Spanish Inquisition, where people were murdered. You had the Salem witch trials, so-called religious people fucking burning women. And then you have the modern religious problems, like the problem with Islam, for instance. Now, by and large, from what I've read, Islam is a pretty okay religion, peaceful, but it's the fuckers who wield it that are twisted. They twist it and pervert it to their own ends. As with any religion, not just Islam, Catholicism, any religion is dangerous in the wrong hands. And in the modern era, people have a negative fucking spin on Islam because they say, "Oh, we do these things in the name of Allah, in the name of God." And I can't believe that God looks at a suicide bomber and says, "Well done." It makes no sense to me. And in terms of Catholicism, which was the religion, I'm Catholic born, not practiced, but I was born a Catholic. But when you look at Catholicism, the biggest blow to Catholicism in recent years has to be the abuse scandals. Priests, or pedophile priests, raping children, just being cruel in general. Fucking these industrial schools where fucking bull boys were sent were either raped or beaten by priests. And these are meant to be fucking God's foot soldiers, They're meant to be, the soldiers of Christ, and the nuns were referred to as the fucking brides of Christ. And they were just these cruel, evil, twisted people. Now, they're not representative of the entire Catholic religion as a whole. There are good people in the Catholic Church, of that I have no doubt. But the attitude people had towards this, initially with the abuse scandals, there was denial. They said, "Not true, not happening." But then it just started coming up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and until it could no longer be denied that this was happening. That there were priests who fucking were raping their way through kids. And not only were the priests not arrested, they were moved to a fucking another church where they could do the whole thing all over again. And allegedly God looks at all this and says, "Oh, well, you pray, you're good." And I just couldn't fathom a God that would condone that kind of behavior or forgive it. Because, I mean, to most people, when you hear of a man who raped a child, and if I'm God, and there's a fellow who's raped a child, and he says, "God, forgive me, I'm so sorry," I'm like, no, if there is a hell, that's where you're gonna go. Because it's just common sense, and fucking just, we have morals, and the very notion that you're going to forgive an act like that is insane. So it's things like that, all these scandals that just kept piling one on top of the other, and combined with questions, and it just all became too much. And in the end, I read certain books. I mean, certain authors were a big help to me, because I suppose I guess you could say I had the crisis of faith. I was wondering, "Oh God, is there a God? Isn't? What is this? What's the point of it all?" You live life and it's all stressful. The idea of a reward at the end is fantastic. The idea that if you live a cruel kind of existence, your life isn't that great, and then you die and you go to this paradise of heaven. It's fantastic. I understand the appeal, but I don't know. It just that's the only attractive proposition of it. And I had the crisis of faith because I still had the lingering belief, I suppose. And two authors were a big help in helping me kind of figure things out and sort them out. Both atheists, of course, and they're Christopher Hitchens and the infamous Richard Dawkins. Their books reading them really helped me sort things out and really helped me come to conclusions that were acceptable to me. Because when I had all these questions, when I would look to religion or when I would think about religion, it was just, it didn't ring true. It didn't help. Because it would say, oh, God says this, God says that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm kind of not believing in God. Can you give me a freaking answer that makes sense without all these contradictions? I mean, the Catholic Church teaches that single mothers and stuff like that are bad, in the sense that the ideal is a man and a woman child. That's the family unit. That's what they say is acceptable. But I mean, I used to think, I was like, hang on a sec. God was always seen as Jesus' dad, right? Now, Mary, Jesus' mother, was married to a guy called Joseph. So did Mary commit adultery? Because she was already married to Joseph, yet God is Jesus' dad, so presumably God made Mary pregnant. So can that not be considered adultery? And again, in the Ten Commandments, it says no adultery. Yet it would seem Mary committed adultery. But at the same time, God could be seen as and this is going to sound bizarre, but God could be seen as an absentee father. Because Mary gave birth to Jesus, raised him. Where was God? No, we're led to believe God was hovering in the clouds, doing feck all. His son was being whipped and bait and nailed to a cross. God just fucking watched. So it just silly questions like, oh, did Mary commit adultery? Was Mary a single mother? You know, it's silly questions. Those were almost childlike questions, but questions nonetheless, because it showed it just started to not make sense. And it wasn't until later years in my life when I discovered those two authors, Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, that it all became clear to me that there is no God, there's no heaven, there's no hell. Our time on earth is what we have, so the best thing to do is just make the best of it. But again, religion is important to people, and I understand that. Now, there'll be a school of atheists who basically think in no uncertain terms. If you believe in religion, you're an idiot, you're thick, stupid, and you're basically childish. Now, I don't necessarily buy into that. When I think of religious people who believe in God and religion is important to them, I don't think they're stupid. I believe they're wrong. I believe they're misguided. No, not for one second do I think they're stupid. Because again, I understand religion's appeal. Because the people find it comforting to know that God's up there, he's watching, he'll look after you in times of trouble. Again, I understand how that can be comforting to people. And religion is important to some and makes some people good people. Now, this is something that I debated recently because it was actually, I think it was a debate with my sister-in-law. Again, I'll say no names, but she believes in God. And as she, like a lot of people, believes that you need religion and you need God to teach good moral behavior. Now, again, I don't for a second buy into that rhetoric. Again, I don't think for one second anyone who believes that is an idiot or stupid. I just think they're wrong and misguided. I mean, my basic belief is, look, you don't need religion to be a good person. I don't need a belief in God or Jesus or Allah, Buddha, or any of them. I know what's right and what's wrong, and I choose to be a good person, not because at the end of it I'll get a reward. At the end of it I'll enjoy eternal bliss. Because I'm living in the here and now, and I believe that you should do good for people. I mean, the only thing in religion that sounds actually pretty good is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is a good rule. You know, I treat people the way I expect to be treated. If someone treats me bad, I'm not going to ignore them. If I treat people the way I expect to be treated, and that's the best way to be. That's the one religious rule, I suppose, that I fucking follow. But the idea that if there isn't that the idea that atheists are immoral, that they're bad people, again, not true. You look at the past videos, you'll get a pretty good sense if you look at the videos that I've made so far that I would hope you think I'm not a bad person. I'm a good guy. Because I choose to be a good guy, because I want to be a good person. It has nothing to do with God or religion. It's to do with the fact that I know right from wrong. I I know all the rules, what's good and what isn't. So I choose to be a good person. I mean, I could be a bad person if I want to, but again, it's not in my nature. I mean, I could think of, oh, I'm going to go murder somebody, I'm going to go beat some people up. But when I think about it, that makes me feel bad because that isn't who I am. And again, I am who I am because of my mom and dad and the rest of my family, my brother and my sisters and my friends. I'm surrounded by good people, and I in turn am good. I'm sure if I was surrounded from birth by bad people, I'd be a prick. But luckily, I had a good mom and dad. I have great siblings, and I have great friends. So they in turn make me a good person. So it isn't Jesus, it isn't God. You don't need God or Jesus or religion of any kind to be a good person. You know in your own head what's good and what's bad. You make personal choice. You have people who commit acts and they say, oh, I did this for God. Like I mentioned earlier, suicide bombers. The guys who flew the planes to 9/11 and said, Allah Akbar, God is great. They're doing this for God. Fucking nonsense. Those were guys who were fucking brainwashed to the extreme by some guy who twisted and perverted Islam. Again, I've already said from what I've read of Islam, it sounds like a pretty good, alright deal. But there are people who twist it and pervert it in any religion, and they twisted it to their own ends, and they're afraid of attack. I mean, that's the thing. There's no room. There's no. I said earlier, there's no room for independent thought in religion. There's also no room for facts. So if you confront a religious person with facts, they'll just ignore it. I mean, it doesn't matter how many studies, how many fucking researchers or scientists or people say this is the way things are. It's true. It's real. They won't believe it. I mean, the best thing is evolution. The theory of evolution. It's long been accepted for the longest time that this is how it all happened. We weren't just created from dust and then yank out a rib and make a woman. God did not create us. There were single-celled organisms that were fucking existing on the planet when it was billions of years old. They all came together, made the first life forms. Then there was fucking bigger life forms. Then fish got out of the water, monkeys, everything. Its evolution is a pretty solid fact. It explains a lot of things because there are religious people who would have you believe that the Earth is only maybe 10 to 16,000 years old. When we know for a fact that's absolutely nonsense. It's not true. You know, the Earth is billions of years old, and the human race has only been around for a fraction of that. And no matter how much evidence of this that you present to religious people, they won't believe it. Because, and I suppose I kind of understand why they won't believe it. It's not that it's not true. It's the fact that they've been, if you're raised in a belief for so many years, for so long, I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like to have it ripped out from under you. I mean, I didn't have religion ripped out from under me. Religion, as I already said, was more like a personal choice. My mom and dad left it up to us to decide whether we wanted to be religious or not. For me, again, as I said, questions, too many questions, and it just made sense. No more, and I just, again, atheist. And that's what happened. I understood too much about the natural world, about science, about the way things truly and really are. And religion just wasn't answering those questions. I found the answers in books, not just by Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. They certainly helped, but in the end, it was just my personal decision, and I just thought long and hard about it. And I thought, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm not going, oh, I'm an atheist, oh, I wish God existed. I'm not that anymore. I was in the beginning, but then the more I become comfortable with, the more knowledge that I have, I know this is what's true, this is what's real, and I'm comfortable with that. I'm fine with it. And religious people, all the love to them. I see the preachers on the street corners with the microphone trying to convert people. Again, that's their prerogative if they want to do that. My basic thing about religion now, what my opinion is now, is if you're religious, that's fine. Best of luck. Just don't expect me to believe it, because I don't. Not anymore. I'm an atheist, always will be. It sucks that there isn't a heaven. It would be great if there was, but the fact is there isn't. What we have here and now is what's real. So I'm not going to indulge in a fantasy of fucking heaven and some omnipresent God. The here and now is all that matters. Right, well, I think that's enough of that rant. I'm looking at the clock here now. Again, I always said it when I started these videos, I want to keep these as short as possible. But for me, once I get talking on a subject, it's impossible to stop. So I'll keep them under half an hour. That's the time. I won't go beyond half an hour. But anyway, as I said, I think that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to the rant. Again, if you like this video, feel free to email me at the end of credits. At the end of the credits, there's my Twitter, Facebook. Feel free to contact me on that email address too. Just let me know what you think. Give me your opinion on things. If you like this video or not, and maybe even suggest things in the future. I said that in a previous video that it's becoming harder to come up with topics. So if there's something you want to know my opinion about, if you value my opinion that much, you want to know what I think about something, let me know, and I'll certainly address it. So that's it for now. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.